everybody. Spul Garage, quick Spul. I'm here today to discuss the technical aspects and just to showcase the DIY MPI low pressure fuel system for an MQB VW. Specs on the kit: 980cc Bosch injectors, Euro Mark 7 MPI fuel rail with a 044 inline pump. Yeah, the design, system design, it's there is the OEM VW fuel pump inside of the tank with a 034 Motorsports surge tank that houses the inline pump, which then feeds the high pressure fuel pump and the MPI rail, with a aeromotive style fuel pressure regulator in the back to regulate the pressure down to 5 bars. Chose 980cc injectors because they were cheap. Got them for 70 bucks. No, sorry, got them for 80 bucks off a buddy of mine who upgraded to 1300 cc's, and they're basically more than enough than I would ever need. The car is not going to ever make over 600 horsepower, so there's no need to go for 1300 cc's. I chose the 044 fuel pump with the surge tank design for several reasons. One reason is almost everyone and anyone who has one of these cars, they usually do Volvo 450 or Volvo 525 Hellcat pump inside of the OEM basket, which they have to modify to fit that pump. And along with that pump, because it draws so much amperage, you essentially are going to need a PM4 controller to actually control the pump and not overheat the stock controller. Along that same line as to the need for a PM4 controller, a Volvo 450 flows enough fuel for, I would say, mid 5s, possibly 6 if you push it. But the reason why I didn't go that route, one of the other reason is the amperage draw from that particular pump at, say, 5 bars of line pressure is, say, anywhere between 16 to 17 amps draw on the electrical system of the car. So whereas the 044 is roughly around 13, 14 amps draw on the electrical system of the car. The next reason is weight savings. How do you save weight by adding a surge tank? Here's how you save weight. 5 gallons of regular fuel weighs around roughly 30 pounds. So the fuel tank in one of these cars, I think, is 14.5 or 14.1 gallons. So it's all-wheel drive car, so you know everybody's going to want to go to the quarter mile run. So let's say I'm on the track on a setup where you have a Volvo in-tank pump instead of a surge tank. You're kind of required to carry at least half a tank of fuel, which is at least 7 to 8 gallons of fuel, to safely make it down the track. Whereas with the surge tank, the canister itself houses a liter of fuel on deck. So with that, I could actually drop the in-tank fuel level to 2 gallons, 3 gallons of fuel, as opposed to that extra 5 gallons that I would have to carry, which is an additional 30 pounds of fuel. So that's 30 pounds out of the car without doing anything, just showing up with an empty gas tank with a gas light on. Another reason that I'm not sure if I'm ever going to experience it or it may have in the future is if I were to do autocross. Once again with the weight savings and also with having fuel slosh of throwing the car left to right, I never have to worry about that when it comes to the surge tank, because there's always fuel on the inside of the canister. There's fuel keeping the pump cool, so there's not really much to worry about when it comes to fuel starvation, unless I actually start pushing the car to a level where I'm emptying the canister faster than the in-tank pump can actually refill it. Driving around town, the tank is always at its limit. Is always filled up. Even with running the stock pump inside the tank at 40% duty cycle, the canister is full because the motor isn't consuming as much. Once we hit the loud pedal, the in-tank pump goes to 100%, and that just keeps the reservoir full. So, design of the system, as I mentioned before, sounds very simple. It is a simple setup, but the parts aren't readily available for any of what I've done. You have to engineer it on a piece of paper. You got to put pen to paper and engineer I had to engineer what my idea was. So it's basically it's set up so that the OEM feed line that feeds the front of the car, I actually recycle that part to actually feed the canister. From the canister, it's all 6AN fittings that comes out of the canister that feeds directly into the high pressure pump. So it is still a one-way system where once the fuel comes up from the back of the canister, it never returns. So it's still a one-way system. So you'll notice that the regulator sits like 4 inches away from the canister itself. So whatever it's not being consumed by the motor, it just dumps that right back into the canister, so that the canister stays full, and that in turn saves on fuel temperature, because being that the fuel isn't coming up to the engine bay, absorbing the engine bay heat and going back to the tank, that's a drop in fuel temp, which is why most automotive engineers design a one-way fuel system, is to try to help save on fuel temperature and evap gases. To be honest, I don't know how reliable this shit is. I really don't know how reliable it is. It on paper, in theory, it's very reliable. It is as reliable as I could maintain fuel inside of that canister, because inline pumps, they do not like to pull fuel. They don't like suck fuel. They just like to have the fuel available and push it forward. So as long as I can keep that canister filled up, I don't see any reliability issues. And the overall design of the system, it's as easy as 5 minutes to return it back to stock. No kidding. I could take, so for instance, if I'm going on a long drive and I don't want to use the surge tank, all I'll have to do is just disconnect 2 lines, cap the feed line for the surge tank and the fuel regulator, and that's it. And I could switch the car back to OEM pump on a long drive as long as I want. And I never have to worry about running that 044 pump for 6 hours, which technically it's designed to do as long as there's fuel around it to keep it lubricated and cool. It's in the trunk. So, still in the trunk. It's under the false floor and encased in the foam padding. Noise level, nah, it's not that bad as I thought everyone would complain about an inline pump. Unlike, you know, dragsters, like drag cars with 044s, and you pull up, you can hear the pump like whee! This is just a little buzz at minimum in the car. If I'm driving alone, silent, like a silent mode, no music on, there's nothing. I can hear my my cupped tire louder than I can hear the pump. Any low conversation, we can have a conversation, low conversation. There's not much noise in the cabin. Also, to add on to the fact that the noise level is low, the pump is located inside of the car, basically, because it's inside the trunk. But just a fold-down seat, it's there. To add to that location of it being inside of the car, with fuel lines inside of the car, there's zero cabin exposure to any gas vapor. All the lines are E85 compliant, so, and they're gasoline compliant, so they're braided lines. I know you're not supposed to do that. It shouldn't work, but somehow it's working. And if for any reason I do get cabin gas vapor sense, then I'll just switch the lines over to PTFE. Why did I do this setup? Why did I DIY and not buy a PRW MPI kit and a PRW Wobble 450 and a Torque by PM4? I'm fucking cheap. I am cheap as shit. And I'm not spending I'm not cheap. I'll buy quality parts when there's a need to buy quality parts, similar to this really expensive tripod that we have in here. But this tripod is expensive as shit. I'm gonna tell y'all this right now. This tripod costs over $1,000. I've never seen a tripod this expensive. Like, this shit better be made out of gold. This tripod is expensive. But yeah, I didn't want to pay that hefty price tag, which is almost $2,000 for stuff that I know that I personally can build, and I like building stuff. That's kind of like the reason why I did it. I could have did the easy way, buy the parts and get someone to install it for me, but I just took the long route of sourcing the parts over time and building a kit that's unique to me. With that comes unique to me problems, but because it's unique to me, I know what the problems are and I can easily fix it. Will I do this for someone else? For the right price, I will do this for anyone. If you're serious about having a custom setup like this, which is kind of like track oriented, for guys who really like want to shred extra weight without chopping up the car, because everyone can remove their front seats, their rear seats, but not everyone can run the car so low on fuel that you could run the car with your gas line. I don't know from personal experience, but I wouldn't. I don't see builders out there recommending anyone with a warbro drop-in to run their cars 2-gallon where the gas light is on. But I know with a kit like this, you could get away with it because the reservoir holds a liter of fuel. By the time you're halfway down the track, if that liter of fuel starts dropping, the in-tank pump is actually putting that fuel back in, getting it ready to. So you have enough fuel to make that pass at the lightest way possible. So just imagine light weights, light brakes, no interior seats, and then you pull up to a guy with the same setup as you, because come on, everybody has a similar setup, but then you have 60 less pounds because you don't have that fuel in the car. he would have to weigh 60 less pounds than you. You know? So if you're serious about a kit like this, like and you're in the New York tri-state area, you just hit me up. quickspul_8vs3, and I'll build it.
And this is the expensive ass tripod.